Hello. So our next chapter is your warehousing. Now, very easy chapter, and ICI has not asked from this chapter as of now, even though it being a new chapter, we'll still study this chapter. Okay. So now your warehousing. So whenever goods come into India, and if they are not cleared for home consumption, in such a case, what do? We transfer the goods to a warehouse. Now this warehouse is properly, it is not just any warehouse, it comes under your custom, that it is properly managed by your custom people. So in such a case, only and only when the goods come out of this warehouse will it be cleared for home consumption. So your duty will be paid at the time of clearance from your warehouse. That means only once these goods come out of your warehouse and into the Indian taxable territory, only then will you pay the duty. Importer to bind himself to pay 3 times the duty determined on date when your bill of entry is presented. So he will have to bind himself that was I'll pay 3 times of the duty, but I will pinky promise pay you. So now how does the story go? First, your goods arrive at the port. Your goods will arrive at the port. Importer executes bond to cover risk of custom duty, any interest and any penalty. All of this he promises that I will cover this. He executes a bond. Next, your assessing officer permits the goods to be deposited without payment of duty. Now these goods, you have not paid duty on them. These goods are still in the warehouse, and into bond bill of entry is filed. What is important is before the goods enter the warehouse, you are not paying any duty. Only and only once the goods exit the warehouse, only then will you have to pay any duty. And if these goods exit the warehouse for home consumption, only then. If these goods export the warehouse again for going outside India, then you do not have to pay duty, because these goods have not been brought into the home, that is into India. And next is ex bond bill of entry filed and duty paid. So whenever these goods come out of the warehouse, then ex bond bill of entry. So while they were going inside, it is into bond bill of entry. When it is coming out, it is ex bond bill of entry filed and duty has been paid. Now there are 3 types of warehouses. One is your public warehouse, your private warehouse, and your special warehouse. Now what is the difference? Dutiable goods by any importer under a public warehouse, dutiable good by any importer can be deposited. Under private, it is only dutiable goods imported by your licensee can be deposited. This is your private, and last is your special. So only goods notified by your CBIC can be deposited. So this is your most popular, that is your public warehouse. Now what is important under both of these, under your public and private, they are not under physical control of customs, but it is record based control. That means physically the customs are not controlling it, but everything has been checked. And under special it is actually under your customs law. That means actually the customs people manage this. Okay. Next is your cancellation of warehouse license. So that is the people who are running the warehouse. In some cases, their license their license can be cancelled. Now, what are those cases? If you contravene any custom law or breaches conditions of the license. If during the inquiry operations are suspended and no goods to be deposited. Next, when license cancelled, warehouse goods to be transferred to another warehouse within 7 days, because you are not allowed to operate. Your license itself has been cancelled, but you say that boss, I already have someone's goods. So in such a case, you have to transfer these goods to another warehouse within 7 days, or cleared for home consumption, or you have to export. That means you have to get rid of these goods. Either transfer them to another warehouse, either clear it for home consumption, pay the duty and take these goods outside the warehouse, or you export it outside India, you do not have to pay duty. If you export it directly from the warehouse, you do not have to pay duty. Okay. Next is your warehousing bond. So it is an indemnity bond needs to be executed for warehousing goods without paying custom duty. A bond, because you are promising that boss, I am not paying right now, but later when I remove these goods for home consumption, I promise I will pay you. So there are 2 types of bonds. One is your consignment bond. Second is your general bond. Now, what does your consignment bond mean? It is executed for a particular consignment. That is, you will say that boss, my this particular consignment, for this particular consignment, I am signing this bond. So if it is consignment based, it is your consignment bond. Bond amount is your 3 times of your duty involved. That means today what duty is there, you agree that I will pay 3 times if in case anything goes wrong. Your general bond is not for any specific consignment, but it is for a particular time period. So it is executed for a particular time period, and your amount will be determined by your AC or DC. Okay, so this is for a particular time period. Of course, which one is more difficult to get? Your general bond is more difficult. Okay, next is your warehousing period. So warehousing period is period for when imported goods are kept in the warehouse without paying duty. That means basically from the day they enter the warehouse to the day they exit the warehouse, that is your warehousing period. Now warehousing period till for capital goods and other than capital goods. So this is bifurcated. So warehousing period in case of EOU, EHTP or STP, in such a case, it is the date of your ex bonding, that is clearance, that will be your end of your warehousing period. For other than capital goods, it is ex bonding or consumption. You remember while goods were taken out of the warehouse, we were calling it ex bonding. For other cases, it is 1 year from the date of order permitting. That is other cases, that means not a EUU, not a EHTP or not an STP. So for all other cases, it is 1 year from the date of order permitting removal of goods from the custom station to the warehouse. That means for only these three people can hold it for as long as they want. That is your EOU, EHTP and STP. They can put it, they can keep it in the warehouse for as long as they want. For all other people, you are maximum allowed to keep it only for 1 year, because 1 year from the date of order permitting removal of goods from the custom station to the warehouse. Okay, your PC or your C, that is your commissioner, can extend the period of warehousing maximum 1 year at a time. Now, how will the interest be paid? So in such a case, for capital goods, no interest is payable. So if capital goods other than capital goods, for your EOU, EHTP and STP, no interest has to be paid. For all other cases, your rate of interest is 15%. Okay, sir, from which day? It is period, that is 91st day from order permitting deposit of goods in warehouse. That means the date of order when we allowed you to put your goods in the warehouse. From that date you have to calculate 90 days, and then from 91st day your interest calculation will be done. Next is amount is the duty payable at the time of clearance of goods. That means when you are clearing your goods, that time. Okay, so even though you are paying your, even though you are not paying your duty today, we will still charge you interest after 3 months. So it is preferable that within 3 months you get rid of these goods, otherwise we will charge you interest also later whenever you pay this duty. If no custom duty is payable at the time of clearance of goods, of course, you do not have to pay any interest. Goods not removed from warehouse after permitted period. That means if they are improperly removed. Date for rate of duty will be date when permitted period comes to an end. Owner may inspect, ensure that goods don't deteriorate, damage, or he may also allowed be he is allowed to sort or show the goods for sale while goods are stored in warehouse. So you are allowed. It does not mean that once you have put the goods in warehouse, you are not able to see it, you are not allowed to touch it. You can still go to the warehouse. You can show people, if someone wants to buy it, you can use that warehouse as your own showroom. Okay. And if someone buys goods for you, you do not have to pay duty. Now it is their tension. Okay, so you are allowed to show the goods for sale also. Next is manufacture in relation to goods in warehouse. The owner of warehouse may carry manufacturing process or other operations in relation to the warehouse goods. So what you have to understand is these goods that you have put into the warehouse, your warehouse owner, he will also allowed, you they have allowed him to do any manufacturing process on this in a custom bonded warehouse. Now this is only allowed in private and special warehouses. It is not allowed in your public warehouse. The owner of warehouse may carry manufacturing process or other operations in related to the warehouse goods in custom bonded warehouse, only allowed in your private and special, not allowed in your public. Okay, now if such manufactured goods, if these manufactured goods are cleared in the domestic market for home consumption, what will be the duty levied? That is your import duty, interest, fine and penalties. Okay, 100% of the duty will be remitted. Now, duty on what quantity? So, if the waste is destroyed, that means on manufacturing, if any waste is destroyed, there will be no duty on waste. However, if the waste is not destroyed, if the waste is not destroyed and it is cleared in your DTA, then there you have to pay duty on the waste too. Even though you tell them that, oh, this is a waste, I'm not going to sell them, does not matter. You still have to pay duty. Okay. And however, so if these goods are cleared in the domestic market for home consumption, this is what this is the case we studied. However, if they are exported outside India, if they are exported outside India, 100% of your duty will be remitted because these goods are exported back outside India. So the duty, any duty that you have paid, this will be given back to you. Okay. And if the waste is not destroyed, it will be duty on the full quantity. Okay. Next is removal of goods from the warehouse. So if the goods are being removed from one warehouse to another for whatever reason, if it is being moved from one warehouse to another, your permission of your proper officer is required. If from warehouse it is being removed for your clearance for home consumption, that means in the country itself you want to sell it, you want to consume it, whatever, it is cleared for home consumption. Again, same ex bond bill entry presented to PO, you will pay the duty, interest, and the any penalty in case all of that have to be paid, and only then will you get your order for clearance. Okay, this interest, this will be charged from 91 days. Okay, anytime before order for clearance of goods for home consumption. So anytime before you get this order, anytime before order for clearance of goods for home consumption, owner can relinquish his title to goods. Relinquish his title to goods means he can give it up. He says the boss, yes, these goods were mine, but I don't want them anymore. This duty, I don't want to pay on this. These goods are also yours. I'm not paying any duty. I just want to get rid of this. I'm running away. So owner can relinquish his title of goods. In such a case, he will only be liable to pay penalties. Duties need not be paid. So only and only if there are any penalties to be paid with regard to this consignment, he has to pay those penalties. Any duty he is not liable to pay since he is giving up ownership. He is giving up ownership of these goods. Okay. And third case of removal from warehouse is, so either your removal of warehouse will be from one warehouse to another, or it will be from warehouse for your home consumption, or your warehouse and it is exported back outside India. So for example, your goods, this is your India. Okay. Okay, now this is your India. Now, for example, you had put the goods in a warehouse. Now, these goods are again going outside India. In such a case, goods exported outside India, of course, no duty will be levied because they never came into the Indian home consumption territory. So, your shipping bill or bill of export has to be presented. Export duty, penalty, and fines, if any, should be paid. So, you have to still pay export duty, penalty, fine, but import duty you don't have to pay. If government is of the opinion that these goods are likely to be smuggled back in India, that means you are exporting it outside India, but any through illegal means these goods will come back into India. It may direct that such goods shall not be exported outside India without payment of duty. So in such a case, if the government feels that these goods will be smuggled back into India, you still have to pay duty on these goods. And last part of your chapter, not very important, is your allowance in respect of volatile goods. So any change in quantity, that means your bonded quantity versus the quantity at the time of removal, which means, for example, I stored petrol. If, for example, I stored petrol in the warehouse, or any gas I stored in the warehouse. Now, during the time when I put these goods, when I put this gas into the warehouse, that time this gas weighs, say, for example, 100 kg. And 3 months, 5 months later, when I come and I see all this gas now only 95 kg, I've lost 5 kg. So that is your bonded quantity. That means bonded quantity means when the goods came into the warehouse versus the quantity at the time of removal. That means removal for whatever case. In such a case, due to evaporation or atmosphere, when any such warehouse goods at the time of removal are found to be deficient in quantity, that means if they are found to be less in quantity due to any natural loss, AC or DC may remit duty on such deficiency. That means you do not have to pay duty on the 100 kgs that we had originally weighed. Since today this is only 95 kgs and 5 kgs has been lost because of evaporation, atmosphere, etc., etc. You only have to pay duty on 95 kg. We will remit this duty on 5 kg back to you if you have already paid. Last is your custody and removal of warehouse goods. Licensee shall appoint a warehouse keeper to discharge functions of warehouse. Licensee means the person who has the license to operate warehouse. He shall appoint a warehouse keeper to discharge the functions of the warehouse. In private and public warehouse, okay, out of the three warehouses I told you, so in private and public warehouse, responsibility of the warehouse keeper assumes greater significance since physical control of bond officer is not there. As you remember, we had studied only and only in this case, only and only in your special warehouse are they actually physically under your custom officer. In both public and private, it is not under the power of custom officer. Bond officer. Therefore, the warehouse keeper responsibility is very important. Next, warehouse keeper to maintain records of any receipt, handling, storing, removal of goods into and from the warehouse. Whatever goods are coming in the warehouse, whatever goods are going out of the warehouse, all of this has to be properly recorded. These records are preserved for a minimum period of 5 years from the date of removal of goods from the warehouse. The date when these goods have been removed from the warehouse, for either of any three cases, moved to another warehouse, or for home consumption, or for export. So 5 years from that date. If any warehouse goods are removed in contravention, licensee liable to pay duty, interest, fine, and penalty. That means if I get into a setting with the licensee, the boss, let me take my goods now, nobody will get to know. If later he gets caught, he will be the person who has to pay the duty on these goods, the interest, fine, and penalty. Okay, and with this we are done with the chapter, and I will see you in the next one.